Chapter 228. Shun Jinglin and the Shun father are shocked, blankly looking at Mu Yang, then looking at Xiao Bao by her side. Lu Yongli feels the pressure coming from Mu Yan's zither sound blade. His face is grave, and there's even a faint fear in his eyes. Because he could clearly feel that the pressure from Mu Yan's zither music was actually stronger than his. Su Yuexiang and Shen Xiaro looked as if they had seen a ghost, and they retreated a few steps in horror. Shen Xiaro even felt regret in her heart. Had she lifted a rock and dropped it on her own feet by bringing this fiend back? Unfortunately, it was all too late. Mu Yang smiled and said, "What's the hurry? Didn't I tell you? The show hasn't started yet." Just as she finished speaking, a voice suddenly rang out. Suddenly, footsteps could be heard coming from the front hall. While everyone was still in a daze, they saw more than a dozen people enter in a line and arrive before Mu Yang and Xiao Bao. They all bowed and knelt down. "Greetings, miss. Greetings, young master." What followed was a strong smell of blood. When these people raised their heads, Shen Xiaoru saw the face of the leader and instantly screamed in fear. The person in the lead is actually Mu Yang's servant, Yang Haotian, and the people who rush in are unexpectedly everyone from the ink camp. Chang Yu took a step forward and reporting to Miss, the Lu family has more than 100 people. Other than the old, the weak, the women, the children, and those who have sold themselves as slaves, all of them have been killed. This is the head of old Master Lu. After saying those words, he raised his hand. A cloth bag fell to the ground, and the knot of the cloth fell to the ground, revealing a bloody head inside. As soon as Lu Yongli saw the head, he immediately let out a heart-wrenching roar. "Father! This head belonged to the Lu family's patriarch. You killed my father. I'll kill you." Lu Yongli frantically pounces towards Mu Yang. But before he could take 2 steps, a sword was pressed against his chest. Yang Haotian stood in front of Mu Yang and Xiao Bao, the tip of his sword pressed against Lu Yongli's chest. Profound qi at the peak of the earth stage surged at the tip of the sword, as if it could shatter his heart meridian at any time. Lu Yongli stopped in his tracks in shock. Just a moment ago, he was enraged to avenge his father. At this moment, it was replaced by the fear of death. It was also at this moment that he finally realized what had happened. More than 100 guards of the Lu family died. They were all killed by these people. Even his father, who was at the peak of the earth stage, was beheaded. The Lu family was completely annihilated. Lu Yongli looks at Mu Yan in shock, and his body begins to tremble. Who exactly did he offend? Mu Yang looked around at everyone in the room, and saw that each of them looked as if they had seen a ghost. Their faces were deathly pale, and she couldn't help but smile leisurely. "Why aren't you talking? The show has just begun. Isn't it a pity that no one is talking?" Saying that, her gaze turned towards Madame Lu. "Just now, didn't you say that you're going to break the tendons of my hands and feet so that I can consummate the marriage with your son?" No. Madame Lu was so scared that the fat on her entire body trembled. She repeatedly waved her hand and shook her head, stumbling as she tried to escape. However, just as he took a step, the sound of the zither suddenly rang out. The blade pierced through the air, suddenly slashing through Madame Lu's 4 limbs. Arth! A scream like that of a pig being slaughtered resounded through the sky. It also made Madame Lu fall heavily to the ground. 3 of her front teeth were broken, and her nose was crooked. She cried out in fright, wanting to use her hand to cover her mouth that was full of blood. Chapter 229. The tendons in her hands and feet have been broken, and she can no longer move them. Madame Lu has completely become a cripple. Master Lu's eyes widen, looking at his wife's bloody Mu Yan. His whole body, even his lips are trembling. He points at Mu Yan and shouts, "My Lu family has no past grievances with you. Even if we had eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai and offended your excellency, you don't have to be so ruthless, right?" Mu Yan sneers, her deep eyes looking at him without a trace of warmth. No past grievances. Then Master Lu, can you please tell me, why did the Lu family and the Shen family make such an engagement? This question caused the bodies of several people present to tremble abruptly. Lu Yongli's eyes reveal a trace of pure fear. But he hears Muyan continue, or should I ask, what did you promise Su Yuexiang to do? Did she agree to make an engagement with the Lu family? Who was the one who was going to marry Lu Chengcai in the beginning? Why did it change to Shen Xiaoru later? If you can answer these questions one by one to my satisfaction, I will spare the Lu family at this moment. What do you think? Lu Yongli looks aghast at Su Yuexiang, then at Shen Jinglin, his voice trembling. No, I don't know what you're talking about. Before he could finish speaking, the sound of metal clashing suddenly resounds. Lu Yongli only feels a sharp pain in his hands and feet, and he falls to his knees with a thud. Before he could let out a mournful wail, Muyan's cold voice reaches his ears. If you still don't want to tell the truth, then next time, you will be exactly like your wife, a cripple. I'll talk. I'll say everything. Please don't break the tendons in my hands and feet. Lu Yongli couldn't bear it anymore, his face streaming with snot and tears as he repeatedly begs for mercy. A year ago, Su Yuexiang suddenly found me and said that she was willing to marry a daughter raised by the Shen family to my son, Lu Chengcai, on the condition that I do something for her. Do what? Lu Yongli once again looks at Shen Jinglin in fear, about to speak. Su Yuexiang screams, surnamed Lu, don't talk nonsense, when did I look for you, Zheng? As the sound of the zither rang out, Su Yuexiang's mouth suddenly split open and blood splattered everywhere. She was in so much pain that she rolled on the ground, moaning in pain. Mu Yang coldly said, it's not your turn to speak yet, what's the rush? He turned to Lu Yongli. Continue. Lu Yongli's intestines were really ruined now, and he hated Su Yuexiang to the bone. If it wasn't for this woman, the Lu family wouldn't have ended up like this. Su Yuexiang she made me find someone to cripple Shen Jinglin during his experimental learning. Hearing this, Shen Jinglin and Shen father suddenly opened their eyes wide, looking over in disbelief. Only Mu Yang remained motionless and continued, then what did you do? Lu Yongli shuddered, and then continued to accept his fate. Shen Jinglin's cultivation is not bad, and he has many companions by his side. My people had no way to succeed at first. Shen Jinglin's original cultivation had already reached the peak of the profound stage, and besides Lu Yongli and great-grandfather Lu, no one else in the Lu family was Shen Jinglin's opponent. Chapter 230. Listening to Lu Yongli's understatement, Shen Jinglin's body can't help but tremble. He thought that the one who crippled him was that terrible person that the Shen family couldn't afford to provoke. But it turned out not to be. The one who really gave him the final blow, turning him into a cripple, turned out to be Su Yuexiang and the Lu family. Why? Why must you be so vicious? Shen Jinglin couldn't bear it any longer, shouting himself hoarse towards Su Yuexiang and Shen Xiaoro. Even if I resent you for killing my mother, I've never spoken ill of you. Although I don't like Shen Xiaoro as much as Yang Yang, I still treat her like a younger sister. Why? Why must you treat me like this? Shen Xiaoro is frightened by his fiendish appearance, taking a step back in fright. But then, as if thinking of something, she righteously says, isn't this all your fault? Who told you to give all the good opportunities to that little slut, Seng Linfang? The opportunity to go to Ziyangzong should have been mine, but father let you and Seng Linfang go. I'm his biological daughter, aren't I? Hehe, I know that little slut likes you. You two dogs have already hooked up. As she speaks, Shen Xiaoro reveals a sinister smile. Seeing that you were crippled, that little slut wept and wept, looking like she wanted to take care of you for a lifetime. She didn't even go to Ziyangzong. This is just right, ha ha ha. In this way, going to Ziyangzong, the opportunity to get close to senior brother Chen is mine. Listening to Shen Xiaoro's vicious words, Shen Jinglin is simply stunned. His voice trembles, his eyes full of fear. Don't tell me that cousin Linfang's death wasn't because she slipped and fell into the water. Seng Linfang is Shen Jinglin's cousin. Because the Zeng family has declined, she has been living with the Shen family for the past 2 years. Although Shen Jinglin doesn't love this cousin, he still treats her like a relative. But half a year ago, one day after he became a cripple, his cousin suddenly slipped and fell into the water, dying. At that time, Shen Jinglin was almost completely disheartened, only feeling that his loved ones had left him one by one. He was the bane of his existence, He was the one who caused the death of his loved ones. He didn't expect that all this was not an accident, but man-made. Of course it wasn't an accident. Shen Xiaoro proudly laughed. The person who was originally going to marry that fool from the Lu family was your good cousin, Seng Linfang. I didn't expect that after Seng Linfang found out, she wouldn't agree no matter what and even tried to escape. So I found Patriarch Lu and let him have a good taste of that little slut. Her chastity is gone, so it doesn't matter to her whether she marries a fool or not. If she gave birth to a chubby boy, no matter what, he would still be a child of the Lu family. Don't you agree, Patriarch Lu? Shen Xiaoro gave Lu Yongli a dubious look as she spoke. Lu Yongli's whole body was drenched in cold sweat. He looked at Shen Xiaoro with a gaze that wished to tear her into pieces. Did this idiot know what kind of situation he was in? It was one thing for them to be so arrogant and moronic, but why did they have to drag him down with them? Unfortunately, Shen Xiaoro had spent her entire life explaining what it meant to not die if you didn't court death. Chapter 231. Evil creature, I'll kill you. I'll kill you with my own hands. The Shen father couldn't bear it anymore. He suddenly jumps up from the bed and ruthlessly pounces towards Shen Xiaoro. Shen Xiaoro wants to fight back, but the people from the ink camp are standing guard at the side. How could she have the chance to make a move? So very soon, the Shen father presses Shen Xiaoro to the ground. He raises his hand and ruthlessly slaps her face. Shen Xiaoro screams like a pig being slaughtered. You dare to hit me, I'm a disciple of Ziyang Zong. Jun Muyan, if you dare to kill me, Ziyang Zong won't let you off. Aya, save me, quickly save me you idiots. However, there's no one in the field who pays attention to her. Only the sound of the Shen father's slaps can be heard. Shen Jinglin's body trembles. He couldn't bear it anymore, and he curls up into a ball. Tears crazily pour out from his eyes. The deathly stillness and despair on his body is like a huge cage that wraps around him, making him unable to break free. Muyan promptly supports him, inserting the silver needles into his acupuncture points to help him get through this hurdle. Brother, don't be like this. If Sister Lin Fang was still alive, she would definitely want you to live well. Shen Jinglin slowly opens his eyes. A man of iron and steel, but right now, he's crying like a child. Yang, I've let her down, I've harmed her. I clearly promised Uncle that I would take good care of her, but I let her suffer such humiliation. 5 years ago, I couldn't protect you, and now I still can't protect Fang'er. What's the use of me as a brother? What qualifications do I have to live? Brother, this has nothing to do with you. Muyan's voice is choked with sobs, and she tightly hugs Shen Jinglin's trembling body. The one who has to apologize is me. If I had let go of my resentment earlier, if I had come back earlier, you wouldn't have had to suffer so much. Brother, if you want to blame someone, blame me. Scalding tears fall on Shen Jinglin's face, slowly stabilizing Shen Jinglin's mood that's on the verge of collapse. Seeing the remorse in Muyan's eyes, seeing Xiao Bao's panic and helplessness because of Muyan's crying, his big eyes slowly fill with tears. Shen Jinglin suddenly realizes that he can't collapse, can't destroy himself, otherwise, Yang will certainly feel guilty for life. Yang, don't cry. Shen Jinglin reaches out to wipe away the tears on Muyang's face, and softly says in a hoarse voice, how can you be blamed for these things? If it weren't for you, my brother might never have known the truth. Don't worry, Big Brother won't collapse. Big Brother will live well. Once you're cured, I'll have to protect you. With tears in her eyes, Muyang heavily nodded. Shen Jinglin gently caressed her head, just like how he always comforted and teased her when they were young. Even though his little sister had become so powerful, almost invincible. But in Shen Jinglin's heart, she was still the little girl from 5 years ago who liked to follow behind him, calling him Big Brother, secretly crying and smiling sweetly at him. Brother, the ones who should be punished are those crazy bastards. Muyan wipes away her tears, restraining the demeanor of a little girl that she hasn't shown for 5 years. Her cold gaze turns towards Su Yuexiang and her daughter, as well as the Lu family's people. Lu Yongli and Su Yuexiang were so scared by her clear black and white eyes that they trembled and almost fainted. Chapter 232. Jun Muyan, I'm telling you, I'm a disciple of Ziyang sect. If you dare to touch me, you're dead. My master and my senior brother won't let you off. Chang Yu helps the swaying Shun father to sit down. The Shun father's eyes are filled with blood, fiercely glaring at Su Yuexiang and Shen Xiaoro. His whole body is emitting a baleful aura, making people believe that if he hadn't exhausted his internal force and his body was weak, he would definitely tear these two people to pieces. Speak. 5 years ago, what did you do to Yang Yang? Is it because of you two beasts that she lost her chastity? Ha 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 ha. Hearing the Shun father's angry question, Shen Xiaoling couldn't help but laugh. Looking at Muyan, there's an indescribable carefree pride in her eyes. So what if I did it? Who told that slut Jun Muyan to have a foxy appearance? She's clearly not the Shun family's biological daughter, but her treatment in the Shun family is better than mine, the real eldest miss of the Shun family. Each and every one of the men by my side are head over heels in love with her, completely not putting me in their eyes. How could I bear this? It's as if she's remembering her own grievances in those days. Shen Xiaoro's swollen pig-like face distorts into a sinister expression, then she smiles complacently. So, I took advantage of the fact that you and Shen Jinglin were traveling and had my mother send her to my uncle's house. Haha, I know that my useless cousin has been drooling over this slut's beauty for a long time. I just casually provoked him and gave him some aphrodisiac, and he couldn't wait to lay his hands on this slut. The more Shen Xiaoro talks, the more excited she gets, as if she's very satisfied with her masterpiece from that year. But Su Yuexiang isn't as brainless as her. From Muyan's every move just now, she knows how ruthless this woman is now. Ruer, don't say any more. Su Yuexiang pulls Shen Xiaoro back, forcing out a smile. I think you must be possessed. What nonsense are you talking about? Muyan is your sister, you've always loved her, haven't you? Are you kidding me? Shen Xiaoro doesn't appreciate it at all, shrieking, who would take that foxy slut as their sister? Pa. I wish I could tear her into pieces. Mother, why are you so timid now? Why should he be afraid of them? Even if they ate a bear's heart or a leopard's gall, they wouldn't dare do anything to me. Don't forget, I'm a disciple of the Ziyang house. Saying that, she shakes off Su Yuexiang, and continues to speak proudly. 5 years ago, I originally wanted my cousin to bring a group of hoodlums to play you to death. I didn't expect that a slut like you would actually run away, and even run into the forbidden area that no one in Yanwu continent dares to enter. Slut, you're really lucky. Otherwise, you would have died 5 years ago. But it didn't matter. Even if you didn't die, you still lost your innocence. Moreover, you lost your chastity to a wild man whose identity you still don't know. Getting pregnant before marriage, becoming the laughingstock of everyone, haha. Jun Muyan, what are you so arrogant about? Bang! Shen Jinglin abruptly stood up, his scarlet eyes unwaveringly staring at Shen Xiaoro, his body trembling because of the extreme suppression. Yang Yang, can you let me deal with this woman? Mu Yang smiles faintly, of course. As she speaks, the sound of the zither rises from her hand, and a mellow and pleasant melody rings out. But what's strange is that this time, the melody doesn't turn into a blade. Instead, it's like a trickling stream, heading towards Shen Xiaoro alone. Chapter 233. Ah. What did you do to me? Why can't I move? Shen Xiaoro suddenly screams. Her body seems like it wants to struggle with all its might, but no matter how she moves, there seems to be innumerable invisible threads firmly binding her, making her unable to budge even half a step. And Shen Jinglin is already walking in front of her, step by step. Shen Jinglin, I'm warning you, I'm a disciple of Ziyang sect. Ziyang sect is the most protective. If you kill me, Before Shen Xiaoro could finish her threat, there's only a ripping sound. Her arm actually flies straight out. Blood splatters everywhere. Shen Jinglin's bloodshot eyes look at her, but there's not the slightest trace of fluctuation in the depths of his eyes because of her screams. This sword is for everything you did to Yang Yang back then. Swish. This sword is for Fanger. The second sword slashes out, and Shen Xiaoro's other arm also flies out. She falls to the ground, blood gurgling out from her arm. The severe pain makes her convulse all over. At this moment, she's finally afraid, terrified. She wriggles her body to escape, crying out, Don't, brother, I was wrong. Please let me go. I'm your little sister. I'm your blood sister. Shun Jinglin slowly lifts his sword once again. Su Yuexiang suddenly sobers up, screaming as she pounces over, "Don't kill her, don't kill my daughter." However, before she could reach Shun Jinglin, she's ruthlessly kicked out by the Ink Camp's people. Su Yuexiang rolls and lands in front of the Shun father. Meeting Shun father's pair of eyes brimming with resentment, she shudders. On the other side, Shun Jinglin's sword falls for the third time. "This sword is for you. Even now, you still want to hurt Yang Yang." One of Shun Xiaorou's legs flies out. Ah! Shun Xiaorou lets out a short scream, her body bounces a bit, her eyes roll back, and she faints. From the stump of her thigh, blood is gushing out like a fountain. At this rate of bleeding, as long as it continues for a while, Shun Xiaorou will undoubtedly die. But how can she let her die so easily? Muyan lightly plucks the zither strings. Two completely different Guqin sounds intertwined. Ground Prison and Echo Aura were combined into one. The blood on Shun Xiaorou's thigh had actually stopped, and she slowly opened her eyes. However, the intense pain did not disappear. She opened her mouth, gasped for breath, and wailed. This time, there was no longer any pride in her eyes, only fear and cowardice. "Spare me. I beg of you to spare me. Boo-hoo-hoo. I'm a disciple of the Purple Sun sect. How can you treat me like this?" Shun Jinglin laughed coldly. "If the Purple Sun sect wants to find someone for revenge, then they can put it all on me." After saying that, he thrust his sword out again, but this time, it wasn't to cut off her remaining leg. Instead, it pierced through her qi. A hoarse scream came out from Shun Xiaorou's mouth once again. But this time, she couldn't even struggle. She could only powerlessly fall to the ground, unable to move. Shun Jinglin throws away the blood-stained sword in his hand and hobbles back to Muyan with difficulty. "Yang Yang, Big Brother has finally avenged you." Before she could finish her sentence, tears were already rolling down her cheeks. Chapter 234. Seeing that familiar smile, Shun Jinglin could no longer hold on, his body softening and collapsing. Yang Haotian's eyes and hands are quick to catch him. Muyan clasps his wrist and examines it. After confirming that he's just collapsed, she breathes a sigh of relief and lets Yang Haotian take him back to his room to rest. "Father." After Shun Jinglin is sent away, Muyan looks at the Shun father. "Su Yuexiang is your wife after all. How to deal with her, it's up to you." Shun Icheng slowly nods, gets up and crouches in front of Su Yuexiang. Su Yuexiang trembles as she looks at him, her face covered in snot and tears. "Master, I've served you for so many years. Even if I don't have any meritorious service, I've still worked hard. Spare me, spare me." Shun Icheng calmly looks at her, then bitterly closes his eyes. "The thing I regret the most in my life is that I was bewitched by you for a moment and had a one-night stand with you. Not only did I cause the death of my wife, I even caused my 2 children to suffer. Su Yuexiang, from today onwards, you and I will no longer be husband and wife." Su Yuexiang's eyes widen and she hisses, "Shun Icheng, what do you mean by that?" "It means that I'm divorcing you, this poisonous woman. From now on, you and your vicious daughter are no longer people of my Shun family. Shun Icheng, you can't divorce me. I have nothing now. If you divorce me, how am I going to live?" Su Yuexiang herself doesn't have the slightest bit of cultivation. Now that her daughter is crippled, the Su family will not accept her. How was she going to survive after she was chased out? However, Shun Icheng has a resolute look on his face. He doesn't even look at her, as if he's already disgusted with her to the extreme. Su Yuexiang looks around blankly, panicked and desperate. Suddenly, her eyes fix on Muyan and Xiao Bao. The despair in her eyes instantly transforms into pure hatred. "Slut, it's all because of you. If you hadn't come back, everything would be fine. You harmed my daughter, harmed me. You won't let me live, so I'll make you wish you were dead." Su Yuexiang roars as she madly pounces on Xiao Bao. She wants to kill Muyan, she wants Muyan to taste the pain of losing her son. She wants Jun Muyan to suffer a fate worse than death. The Shun father never thought that he would let Su Yuexiang live. But this crazy woman actually wanted to hurt his grandson. She immediately let out an anxious roar, Su Yuexiang, stop. Don't hurt my grandson. However, his body was already weak, and Su Yuexiang's attack was sudden, so how could he stop her? Su Yuexiang's long and sharp fingers were about to reach Xiaobao's face. But everyone present was calm and collected, as if they didn't see this scene at all. Mu Yang is leisurely plucking the zither strings. The people of the ink camp are bored as they pick their fingers. It was as if no one cared about Xiaobao's life or death. Su Yuexiang let out a burst of laughter like a broken bellows. She suddenly stretched out her hand to strangle the child's tender neck. Bastard, go to hell. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for being Jun Muyan's son. The last word son had not yet been uttered. Suddenly, a sharp pain came from his wrist, and at the same time, there was the sound of bones breaking. A pair of chubby little hands clasps Su Yuexiang's wrist, and gently breaks it. The bones in Su Yuexiang's hand are like fragile, withered twigs, broken. Chapter 235. Xiao Bao loosens his hand, and pushes his palm towards Su Yuexiang's chest. A powerful internal force suddenly erupts. With a bang, Su Yuexiang flies out stiffly, landing on the open space outside the door. She suddenly spits out a mouthful of blood, and passes out. The Shun father is still reaching out to save his grandson. Seeing this scene, he's completely flabbergasted. Dumbfounded. Is this a palm that a 4-year-old child can make? This 4-year-old child is his grandson? Is he really not dreaming? Xiao Bao withdraws his hand, his little face still cold, but those who are familiar with him can feel that there's some uneasiness in his eyes. Grandfather, Xiao Bao only broke all her ribs, he didn't kill her. So, this isn't going against Nyang Qin's words. Let grandfather deal with this hateful woman, right? Saying that, Xiao Bao also looks at Muyan. Seeing Muyan smile at him, his taut little body suddenly relaxes. The Shun father abruptly comes back to his senses, and his head immediately shakes like a rattle. Xiao Bao is right, Xiao Bao did a great job. That bad woman wanted to hurt Xiao Bao, it doesn't matter if Xiao Bao killed her. Grandfather was just surprised, I didn't expect our Xiao Bao to be so powerful. Xiao Bao blinked, and a layer of ripples appeared in his big blue eyes. They were so resplendent that they looked like sparkling and translucent gems. There's pride, joy, and the warmth of a grandchild that has never been there before. Muyan withdraws her gentle gaze, and looks at the only one still standing in the field, the Lu family's master. As soon as he meets her gaze, Lu Yongli shivers, and he kneels down with a thud. Miss Jun, this one was bewitched, and my brain was muddled with dog shit, that's why I attacked you. I beg you to be magnanimous, and let my son and I go. I can spare your 2 little lives. Muyan chuckles, and then throws out a porcelain bottle. The porcelain bottle rolls in front of Lu Yongli. Muyan continues, this is a draft that can cripple 90% of your cultivation. If you obediently drink it, and leave Tianyuan City and never come back, then I will spare your and your son's lives. Lu Yongli shivers all over again, and there's clear fear and struggle in his eyes. You can also choose not to drink. Muyan chuckles, then I'll settle the score with you, the Lu family injured my brother. I'll drink. I'll drink. Lu Yongli no longer dares to hesitate, and he picks up the draft and pours it into his mouth. A burning pain surges from his qi, and he lets out a mournful howl. Lu Yongli almost feels that he's been fooled. This isn't some draft that can cripple 90% of his cultivation, it's clearly trying to put him to death. This kind of pain lasted for a full quarter of an hour before the pain in his qi and his limbs and bones slowly disappeared. But at the same time, he of his body. When he casually circulated his profound energy, he found that his meridians were blocked and his sea of qi dried up. There was not even a tenth of his profound energy left. He had already turned from an earth-grade expert to a yellow-grade trash. Lu Yongli's body trembled. His eyes were sore, and his heart was filled with hatred. But as soon as he raises his head and meets Muyan's clear and bright eyes, all his resentment is like a punctured balloon, completely replaced by fear and dejection. He seemed to have aged 10 years in an instant. He grabbed his son and was about to leave. But Lu Chengcai is still drooling over Muyan, beautiful wife, sleep, want fairy sister. Lu Yongli was so scared that his soul almost left his body. This idiot actually dared to provoke that fiend. Chapter 236. No, no, no. There's no need to abide by it. Lu Yongli was so scared that he couldn't even speak properly. Mu Yang smiles, her smile languid and devilish. I've always been the most law-abiding. Since I've set the rules, of course I have to abide by them. Shen Xiaoro, am I right? Lying half dead on the ground with only one leg left, Shen Xiaoro widened her eyes in horror. She stared at her with eyes full of resentment and fear. What do you think? Patriarch Lu, are you satisfied with this daughter-in-law of yours? Shen Xiaoro screamed, I don't want to marry a fool. I don't want to marry that idiot. Jun Muyan, you can't do this to me, you slut, I'm going to kill you. I'll kill you. When Lu Yongli hears that Muyan really wants to fulfill the engagement, he immediately feels that he has just survived a disaster. Although Shen Xiaoro had become a good-for-nothing, only such a good-for-nothing could be controlled by the current him, right? What's more, Shen Xiaoro had a young and beautiful face. Perhaps she could carry on the Lu family's ancestral line. Even if they couldn't carry on the family line, they could still make a lot of money by selling them to the brothel. All right, thank you Miss Jun, I won't marry him. I don't want to marry a fool. Ah. Shen Xiaoro's mournful scream slowly faded away. Su Yuexiang was thrown out of the Shen family, and the Lu family's underlings scattered in confusion. It also meant that the matter of the Shen family had come to an end. However, there are still a lot of things that Mu Yang needs to worry about. For example, the current servants of the Shen family. These people were all Su Yuexiang's confidants. When the Shen father and Shen Jinglin were in trouble, not to mention loyally protecting the Lord, it was enough for them not to add insult to injury. Mu Yang directly drove all these people out, and let Yu Yang bring in a group of gentle people from the ghost cities Wn Ren Ku. There were also medicine shops. Yang Haotian and Feng Haitang have already bought a courtyard for her. Mu Yang is very satisfied with both the place and the layout. Chen Qingfeng and Old Dao had also arrived. Logically speaking, it should be easy to open a shop. However, Muyan is speechless as she discovers that Tianyuan City has its own unique rules. In order to open a medical center and medicine shop here, they would need to go through layers of verification, and it would take at least half a year. Of course, these are not what Mu Yang is most concerned about. What she cared about the most was Shen Jinglin and Shen Yicheng's injuries. Shen Yicheng's injuries were still manageable. Although the poison had entered his lungs and damaged his heart and arteries, as long as he recuperated in a medicinal bath and used golden needles to expel the poison, he would recover sooner or later. The troublesome thing was Shen Jinglin's injury. His leg bones were broken many times, his hamstrings were torn, and his muscles were atrophied. His qi was pierced and contracted, causing the meridians in his body to stagnate and shrink. To be completely cured, the withered bones and tendons had to be revived and muscles regenerated. He had never heard of such an injury, let alone treating it. Mu Yang and Xiao Bao flipped through the books in the space for a long time, but they couldn't find a cure. Just as she's pondering whether or not she should try alchemy again, she hears Feng Haitang say from outside the room that Shen father is looking for her. After Mu Yang left, Xiao Bao remained in the space, frowning as he earnestly searched for the pill recipe. There was an unimaginably huge bookshelf in the space, but there weren't many books on it. It didn't take long for him to finish flipping through everything that he could. However, he still had no clue. Little Treasure slightly puffed up his cheeks, and a trace of worry appeared on his white and tender face. He knew that Nyang Qin especially wanted to cure Zhou Qin. If Zhou Qin's illness couldn't be cured, Nyang Qin would definitely be sad. Would she cry like that day? As long as Xiao Bao remembers the appearance of his Nyang Qin shedding tears on that day, he would feel so uncomfortable that he couldn't breathe. Chapter 237. The stupid rabbit that was sleeping soundly at the side seemed to have sensed its little master's worries. Suddenly, it turned over and flipped through the books with its claws, blinking its beady eyes. Suddenly, its hind legs kicked off and it leaped up. This time, he didn't jump 3 or 4 meters like before. Instead, he shot straight up into the sky. Xiaobao let out a puzzled ah and looked up. The rabbit flew up more than 10 meters. Then, it suddenly bloomed like fireworks in the sky. His tiny body, which was only the size of 2 palms, suddenly became so huge that it covered the sky and covered the entire treasure house. What followed was the doctor's long, drawn-out growl. The sound did not sound like that of a rabbit, a lion, a tiger, or any other creature in the world. However, it seemed to be able to converge into a kind of energy that heavily struck one's soul. Xiaobao stared blankly, unable to come back to his senses for a long time. Because it was too far away, he couldn't clearly see what the rabbit had become. He only felt that there was a vast, distant, and suffocating aura spreading in the air. Bang! With a loud bang, the rabbit's paw landed on one of the bookshelves. The old bookshelf, which was originally empty, suddenly lit up with a dazzling golden light. Following that, a book flew out from the empty bookshelf and landed in front of Xiaobao with a whoosh. Xiaobao instinctively caught the book and looked at it. Only to see 6 large characters written in bold and flamboyant calligraphy, Supreme Draft Classics. Flipping open the book, there's another line of small characters inside: mysterious, spiritual, and immortal. These 3 energies are the essence of heaven and earth. When refined to the extreme, even if it's a draft, it can still bring the dead back to life and grow flesh and bones. Flipping to the next page, he saw the prescription for the muscle and marrow cleansing fluid. It's clearly written at the back that this kind of draft can not only activate the withered muscles and bones in the body, it can also reshape the qi and perfect one's aptitude. Xiaobao suddenly raised his head, and his usually cold voice carried a rare trace of excitement. Bunny. High up in the sky, the huge white figure heard his voice. As if it was leaking air, it began to shrink rapidly. As it shrank, it spun and fell until it fell into Little Treasure's arms. It had already reverted back to that chubby, furry, stupid rabbit. Xiaobao's blue eyes sparkled as he stared at the rabbit. The rabbit's little mung-bin eyes revealed a rare trace of pride, and it licked Xiaobao's hand. Then, his legs turned over and he fainted. Xiaobao was startled at first, but he found that the rabbit was only sleeping soundly. She even rolled over and rubbed her soft belly against his chest. Only then did she heave a sigh of relief. His small hand picks up that classic book on supreme drafts. His taut little face shows a trace of an undetectable smile. Nyang Qin would definitely like it if she saw it. Father, is there anything wrong with your body? As soon as Muyan enters the room, she sees the Shen father sitting by the window, a pair of turbid eyes blankly staring at the distant sky, deep grief and necrosis flowing out from the bottom of his eyes. Hearing Mu Yang's words, the Shen father suddenly comes back to his senses and smiles at her. Yang, you are here? Muyan steps forward and grabs his hand to feel his pulse. Then she slightly frowns. Father, the injuries in your body have already healed, and the poison has basically been removed, but, if you continue to be depressed in your heart, I'm afraid that your cultivation will not advance even an inch in this lifetime. The Shen father doesn't respond to Muyan's words, but blankly stares at the beautiful girl in front of him. Chapter 238. Abruptly, a sentence pops out of his mouth. You and your biological father look very similar, especially these eyes. At that time, Shiyuan was always teased by people, saying that a man's appearance is too enchanting, because of this pair of beautiful, soul-stirring eyes. Muyan's heart slightly tightens, and she murmurs the 2 words, Shiyuan? Yes. The Shen father slowly says, your father's name is Jun Shiyuan, he was once my life and death brother, and also the savior of my Shen family. Muyan stares blankly for a while, before reacting to what your father means. Her biological father? Her closest blood relative? But she has no impression at all. The Shen father's eyes stare at Muyan, but his pupils aren't focused. Instead, it's as if he's looking through her to the distant past. Yang, your cultivation is very high now, isn't it? So high that I can't look up to it. Muyan is silent for a moment, then she says, I have reached the pre-celestial realm. Despite being mentally prepared, the Shen father suddenly widens his eyes when he hears Muyan's answer. There was amazement, shock, and relief in her eyes as he looked at her. Pre-celestial. Pre-celestial. Ha, a less than 20 years old pre-celestial. If this were to spread, Who knows how many people's eyes would pop out? Yang Yang, you really are worthy of being his daughter. The Shun father mutters. At that time, Sworn Brother's talent also shocked the world. He was only 25 years old, younger than the dustless Gongzi by Ichen that everyone now holds in high esteem. However, he had already reached the peak of the pre-celestial realm, and successfully crossed the thunder tribulation. Muyan suddenly widens her eyes, and her usually calm face reveals a rare look of shock. 25 years old, peak pre-celestial, and successfully crossed the tribulation? What kind of talent is this? Is this her biological father? And then? Muyan asks softly. Later, he went to a wider world. The Shun father shows a shallow smile. Sworn Brother was never a person who was content with being ordinary. He longed for adventure, longed to pursue the pinnacle of martial arts. When he broke through to the peak of the pre-celestial realm, he said that above the Yenwu continent, there was a wider and more colorful world that he must go and see. Xiuzhen continent. Muyan slowly spits out these words. The Shun father shows a trace of surprise, then he feels relieved. You really know. After successfully crossing the tribulation, he disappeared from the Yenwu continent. I don't know where he went. In the following 10 years, there was no more news of him, and the people of Yenwu continent also slowly forgot about his existence. But one day, 17 years later, he suddenly appeared, carrying you in his arms. The expression on the Shun father's face fluctuates with worry because of these memories, his brows tightly knit together. My sworn brother wasn't in a good state at that time. His eyes were filled with desperation and determination to die. The way he entrusted you to me was more like entrusting an orphan to him. Mu Yang's hands unconsciously tighten. I asked him what he was going to do and when he would be back. He said that he was going to take back his wife, your mother, so that they could live together in the same quilt, and die together in the same hole. No matter what, we will not be separated. The rims of the Shun father's eyes reddened slightly. At that time, I could see that he already had the will to die. Or perhaps, he knew that he was going to die, but I couldn't stop him. Mu Yang heard herself asking with difficulty, what else did he say? Chapter 239. Who took my mother away? My sworn brother didn't say. Shun father shakes his head again. I only know that it's a force that can cover the sky with one hand in the Xiuzhen continent. Before he left, my sworn brother said that he hoped that I would raise you well and not tell you the truth. He wanted it to be as if your biological parents had died long ago. He doesn't want you to avenge them. Yang Yang, I'm sorry, I didn't abide by the agreement with my sworn brother to take good care of you. The Shun father chokes with sobs. I also didn't do what I promised him, to hide this matter from you forever. I've always held on to a glimmer of hope that maybe my sworn brother is still alive. Father. Muyan reaches out and holds his withered hand, saying softly, Father, you've already done well enough, there's no need to blame yourself. I'm not your biological daughter, but you've treated me better than your biological daughter all these years. Su Yuexiang's matter has nothing to do with you. Even if you were in the wrong back then, the pain and torture you've suffered all these years is more than enough. In the future, you, me, big brother, little treasure, all of us will get better and better. Mu Yang's words seem to have touched a certain nerve of the Shun father, making him unable to bear it any longer, tears streaming down his old face. Can Jinglin really be cured? Yes. Father, I promise you, I will definitely cure big brother. Yang Yang, can you really forgive me? I let you get hurt like that. Yes, father, I forgive you. The Shun father cries like a child, but he also vents out all the depression, guilt, and remorse that he has been suppressing for this period of time. Feeling the vitality slowly spreading around his body, Muyan breathes a sigh of relief. In this way, Father Shun would really be able to gradually recover. Yang Yang, do you think my sworn brother, is he still alive? Hearing the Shun father's last choked question, Mu Yang was silent for a while before looking out the window and muttering. I will definitely go to that world and confirm whether my parents are dead or alive. Baby, did you find this in the space? Flipping through the thin draft book in her hand, Muyan is simply indescribably pleasantly surprised. No matter which of the draft's prescriptions on it, he has never seen or heard of any of them. Their value simply can't be measured with secular objects. Let me give you an example. The filter of barrier breaking that Muyin refines is also a prescription left behind by Bailey Luyin. Any random bottle could be sold for tens of millions of gold coins. However, this classic book of supreme drafts only touches on less than 10 prescriptions altogether. But the value of each of them was much higher than that of 10 formulas of the filter of barrier breaking. What surprised Mu Yang the most was the first prescription, marrow and tendon cleansing fluid. This seemed to be tailor-made for Shun Jinglin. Seeing Xiao Bao nod his head, Mu Yang couldn't help but pick up her son and fiercely kiss him a few times. Xiao Bao's little face was red, but his big eyes were full of bright light. Mother, this is all thanks to Bunny. Xiao Bao recounted the process of the rabbit turning big, flying high up in the sky, and dropping a book on the ground. Mu Yang looks down at the fat rabbit sleeping soundly on the ground, her expression pensive. Although he knew that the rabbit was powerful, he didn't expect it to be this powerful. What breed was this fat rabbit? No matter what, luckily I didn't eat the stir-fried rabbit meat back then. Chapter 240. The sleeping fat rabbit doesn't know what it's dreaming about, it shivers as if it's afraid of the cold. So it turns over, pressing its soft belly under it, and continues to sleep soundly. Muyin studies the prescription for the washing marrow and shaving tendon fluid, but she finds out that of the 3 main ingredients mentioned, dragon bone grass, refined marrow flour, and harmony grass, only the harmony grass is already there. The other 2 ingredients aren't available in the Fog Forest and the Ghost City's draft warehouses. These 2 ingredients themselves are very rare in the Yenwu continent, and there's no market for them. Muyin lets old Dao borrow the Ghost Doctor's channel to inquire around. Miss, this subordinate has found out that these 2 rare drafts, I'm afraid there are only 2 places in the entire Yenwu continent that have them. Which 2? One is Huang Yarrow Country's Heavenly Road sect, the great alchemist Jian Fengshuo. The other is the Xian Medical Pavilion founded by Jing Cheng Country's Godly Doctor. However, if you want to buy the herbs in Xian Medical Pavilion, you must first pass the Xian Medical Pavilion's test and become their affiliated senior doctor. Hearing about the Godly Doctor and Xian Medical Pavilion, Muyin's pupils slightly narrow, and a cold light flashes through her eyes. Old Dao continues, but this subordinate has already asked the Ghost City's people to help coordinate. I believe that it's just to buy some herbs from Xian Medical Pavilion. The people of Xian Medical Pavilion still have to give face to the Ghost City. No need. Muyin carelessly interrupts him, picks up the teacup and slowly takes a sip. I'll go take the Xian Medical Pavilion's exam myself. The words that old Dao originally wanted to say are suddenly choked in his throat, flabbergasted. Wait a minute. Miss, can you not say that the Xian Medical Pavilion's exam is as simple as eating and drinking? Not to mention the senior doctor, there are very few people who can pass even the junior doctor's exam every year. Many doctors have been practicing medicine for decades, and now they still fail the intermediate doctor's exam. You look like you can just casually pass the senior doctor's exam. Hearing old Dao's tactful consolation, Muyin hooks up the corners of her lips, revealing a lazy and evil smile. Since it's an old friend's territory, how can I not go and meet it in person? Coming out of the heavenly fragrant square, Shun Jinglin looked at the red bean crisp in his hand, his somewhat weathered face revealing a rare gentle expression. When she was a child, Yanyan's favorite food was Tian Xiongfang's red bean cake. No matter how angry or sad she was, as long as she ate the red bean cake, she would smile sweetly. In the past 5 years, Shun Jinglin had bought red bean cakes countless times, but he didn't know who to give them to. Now, his sister had finally returned home. Just as he was deep in thought, a figure suddenly rushed out from the side and collided with him. During this time, Shun Jinglin's body was much better under Mu Yang's treatment, and he no longer needed to use crutches. However, his leg was still lame, and his cultivation had not recovered. Therefore, after the collision, he staggered and fell to the ground. There was a painful moan in his ear. Shun Jinglin felt that this voice was familiar. Looking up, he saw a dainty but haggard face, and could not help but be startled. Jingya? Are you Jingya? The woman in her arms frowned slightly because of the pain. Hearing the voice, she looked up abruptly. Brother. Shen. The woman's eyes reddened the moment she said those 3 words, and her voice became choked with sobs. But she quickly covered it up and stood up in a panic. Brother Shen, are you all right? Did I hurt you? Shen Jinglin shook his head and got up from the ground. Chapter 241. Shen Jinglin's expression is tranquil as he says, Jingya, long time no see, these days how are you and Chunming? The woman before him is called Fang Jingya. In the past, she often formed a team with Shen Jinglin, gaining experience in various places and improving her cultivation base. Shen Jinglin also has a close relationship with Zhao Chunming, who Shen Jinglin takes care of as a younger brother. The 3 can be regarded as childhood sweethearts, their relationship not shallow. But a year ago, Shen Jinglin had an accident, completely becoming a cripple. These 2 people who should have been like his blood brothers and sisters, suddenly cut off contact with him. Only Zhao Chunming personally sent a wedding invitation half a year ago, his face full of arrogance as he said, he and Fang Jingya are going to get married. Looking at his crippled appearance, perhaps he can't attend the 2's wedding. Shen Jinglin also knew at that time. This person who calls him Big Brother Jinglin on the surface, has always been jealous and resenting him behind his back, wishing that he could die. Hearing his question, Fang Jingya's tears fall even more fiercely, but she immediately turns around, wipes her tears, and reluctantly reveals a smile. Big Brother Shen, I'm fine, it's just that you, Jingya, how can you run around by yourself? Just as she's speaking, a man's voice suddenly comes from a distance. Hearing this voice, Fang Jingya's whole body fiercely trembles, her haggard face revealing a frightened expression. While speaking, the owner of that voice has already come forward in large strides. His gaze sweeps over Fang Jingya, and finally falls on Shen Jinglin's face, revealing a meaningful smile. Oh, I say, Jingya, why did you suddenly stop here? It turns out you've met an acquaintance. Big Brother Jinglin, long time no see. Shen Jinglin's face suddenly becomes gloomy. He doesn't want to have anything to do with this ungrateful guy, so he turns around to leave. But without waiting for him to move, Zhao Chuanming's malicious gaze suddenly falls on his lame leg. Seeing that Big Brother Jinglin can walk around outside, I thought that your disability has already been cured. It turns out that it's still this miserable appearance. Really pitiful. Do you have no money to treat it? We're brothers, Big Brother Jinglin. Just say a word, even if I give you some medical expenses, what about it? Chunming, don't say any more. Fang Jingya grabbed Zhao Chunming, her voice trembling. Let's go back. Zhao Chunming turns his head towards Fang Jingya and casts a mocking look, a smile that isn't a smile. Suddenly, without warning, she raises her hand and ruthlessly slaps Fang Jingya's face. Fang Jingya staggers from being thrown, blood spills from the corner of her mouth. Slut, have you forgotten that you're my woman? You actually dare to think about another man in front of me? I think you must be tired of living, right? Shen Jinglin abruptly returned to his senses. I can't believe that Zhao Chunming, who used to be at Fang Jingya's side, attentive and careful, would unexpectedly treat his wife like this. Zhao Chunming lifts his foot and ruthlessly kicks Fang Jingya again. He hurriedly stepped forward to stop him. Zhao Chunming, what are you doing? Hitting a woman, do you still count as something? Zhao Chunming sneered and said, I hit my own woman, it's none of your business. Or could it be that the 2 of you have been together for a long time, and seeing your old lover suffer, you feel sorry for him? No. Fang Jingya's face streamed with tears as she shakes her head. Me and Big Brother Shen are innocent, we've never been improper. Don't talk nonsense and slander us. Chapter 242. Shen Jinglin simply couldn't believe it. In his impression, the once gentle and honest little brother unexpectedly had such a vicious and unkind side. His whole body pounced forward, knocking Zhao Chunming away, and he staggered to help Fang Jingya up from the ground. Jingya, let's go, I'll take you to treat your injuries. At this time, Fang Jingya's head and face were covered in blood, her appearance indescribably miserable and distressed. Shen Jinglin helped her up, inadvertently lifting up her sleeves. He saw that on her fair skin, there were blue and purple scars everywhere. That appearance was simply too horrible to look at. This This was all done by that beast. Shen Jinglin roared in disbelief. Fang Jingya just cried, shaking her head as she cried, struggling to free herself from his support. Big brother Shen, I'm fine, don't worry about me, you quickly go, quickly go. Shen Jinglin's chest couldn't help heaving up and down. He and Fang Jingya could also be regarded as childhood sweethearts, and there had been ambiguous feelings in their hearts, but after Fang Jingya married Zhao Chunming, they had already disappeared without a trace. But without ambiguous feelings, it doesn't mean that he can helplessly watch the little girl he watched grow up fall into such an end. At this moment, Zhao Chuanming's cold and resentful voice came from behind. You adulterous couple, you still dare to say that there's no illicit relationship. Shen Jinglin was caught off guard, feeling a sharp pain in his back. He had already been ruthlessly kicked to the ground. When Fang Jingya saw that Zhao Chunming was about to lay his hands on Shen Jinglin, she immediately cried and threw herself at him, hugging his thigh. Don't hit, please don't hit, I'll go back with you, I won't wander around again, okay? Zhao Chunming grabbed her hair, forcing her to cry out in pain and raise her face. He raised his hand and ruthlessly slapped her face several times. Fang Jingya's pale face immediately swelled up. Tears of despair, mixed with the bloodstains at the corners of her mouth, flowed down, looking exceptionally miserable. Shen Jinglin struggled to climb up. Zhao Chunming, do you still have any humanity? He trembled with anger. At that time, wasn't it you who begged Jingya to marry you? Why did you marry her, but treat her like this? She's my woman, how I want to treat her is my freedom. Zhao Chunming sneered. What, you want it? Ha ha ha, why don't you ask this slut if she's willing to go with you? Saying that, she grabs Fang Jingya's hair. Still not telling your old lover, do you want to go with him? As long as you say yes, I'll let you go. How about that? Shen Jinglin frowned and said, Jingya, don't be afraid of him. As long as you want to get rid of this beast, whether it's separation or something else, elder brother Shen will support you. Fang Jingya's body is like a weak willow in the wind, she can't stop trembling. But in the end, she slowly closed her eyes, and tears rolled down her swollen face. Elder brother Chen, don't worry about me. If I marry a chicken, I follow the chicken. If I marry a dog, I follow the dog. Since I've already married this man, this is my fate. Hurry up and leave. His trembling voice was filled with infinite sorrow and despair. Zhao Chunming laughed heartily when he heard that. Shen Jinglin, did you hear that? Even your old lover despises you for being a cripple now and doesn't want you. Ha ha ha. Then, he cruelly pulled Fang Jingya's hair and directly left. Chapter 243. Shen Jinglin takes 2 steps forward, wanting to catch up, but in the end, he still stops. The hands hanging at his sides tightly clench into fists. After Shen Jinglin comes back, Mu Yang finds out that he's depressed. She asks him what happened, but he refuses to say. The strangest thing is that the red bean cake that Shen Jinglin specially bought for her has also been crushed into pieces. This seemed to be the result of a fight with someone. Brother, did someone bully you? Mu Yang's gaze slightly sinks. Shen Jinglin stares blankly for a while, then he shakes his head, giving an irrelevant answer. Yang, can brother's leg really be cured? Mu Yang smiles faintly, gets up and says, Brother, I'll take you to a place. Shen Jinglin. Mu Yang leads Xiao Bao, followed by Feng Haitang and Shen Jinglin, and goes straight to Tianyuan City's Xian Medical Pavilion. Yang, what are you doing in Xian Medical Pavilion? Shen Jinglin is confused. Are you going to take the exam to become a doctor in Xian Medical Pavilion? Mu Yang smiles and nods. Feng Haitang has already rushed to the registration office. Excuse me, I'll be taking the doctor's exam. The person at the registration office looks up at Feng Haitang. Seeing her cold and elegant appearance and noble temperament, he can't help but take a second look. But he only takes a second look, then casually throws out a piece of paper, fill in the information, pay the gold coins, and go inside to take the written test. Feng Haitang takes the paper and fills in Mu Yang's information one by one. There are 2 copies. The person casually takes the 2 pieces of paper and glances at them, then casually says, Who's going to take the exam? It's me. Mu Yang slowly steps forward, and Feng Haitang quickly retreats behind her. The man looks up and sees a beautiful face, and a pair of eyes that seem to be able to captivate his soul. His mind immediately swings, and he can't even speak fluently. Please pay the gold coins according to the regulations. Mu Yang casually throws out a bag of gold coins, the corner of her lips slightly hooking up. Now, can I go in? The girl in front of him is plainly dressed, without any makeup or ornaments. When she smiles, it's as if the mountains are blooming in spring. The man is muddle-headed, he doesn't even see what's in his hand. He directly picks up the seal and knocks it on the paper. He returns it to Mu Yang. Please come in. It wasn't until Mu Yang's figure disappeared behind the door that he lowered his head and saw the word Senior Doctor on the remaining piece of paper. His eyes suddenly widened. Aya, it's wrong. How could it be an examination for senior physicians? She was only 18 or 19 years old. How was it possible for him to pass the advanced physician examination? But when he raises his head, Mu Yan's shadow is nowhere to be seen. And Shen Jinglin, who remains in place, is simply even more dizzy than the man in charge of the registration at Xian Medical Pavilion. Yang Yang wants to take the Xian Medical Pavilion's senior doctor exam? How is this possible? In the entire Tianyuan city, there wasn't even a single senior doctor. Xiao Bao raised his head and expressionlessly glanced at him. In a resolute and decisive voice, he said, "There is nothing in this world that mother cannot do." Shen Jinglin was startled. Moreover, Nyangqin can only buy dragon bone grass and smelted marrow flour here after becoming a senior doctor of Xian Medical Pavilion. Why does Yang Yang want to buy these two herbs? Xiao Bao throws Shen Jinglin an expression that says you mortals are really stupid. Of course it's because of these two kinds of medicinal herbs that Nyangqin can concoct to cure uncle's illness. Chapter 244. It turned out that Yang Yang did it for him. It was not just for him to obtain the dragon bone grass and smelted marrow flour. It gave him even more confidence. Yang Yang is telling him, she can easily pass the exam to become a senior doctor of Xian Medical Pavilion, so treating his leg injury naturally isn't a problem. Shen Jinglin slightly lowered his eyes and took a deep breath, letting the moisture in his eyes recede. In this life, the luckiest thing that has ever happened to him is having a younger sister like Yang Yang. The second floor of Xian Medical Pavilion is specially used for written exams. It was divided into 3 areas: beginner, intermediate, and advanced. From time to time, there would be doctors going in and out of the primary and intermediate areas. On the other hand, there wasn't even a shadow of a single person on the advanced side. The examiner in charge of invigilating the exam was sleeping soundly on the table. Mu Yang walked in front of the examiner and lightly knocked on the table. "What are you arguing about?" The examiner wiped off the saliva on his beard and said impatiently, "If you want to participate in the assessment, go left to the end." "I'm sorry, I'm going to participate in the advanced physician examination." The clear and melodious voice pulled some of the examiners back to their senses. He suspiciously raises his head, and when he sees Mu Yang's picturesque young face, he can't help but burst out laughing. Where did this little girl come from? Do you know what a senior doctor is? Scram, go to the side and cool off. Don't disturb my sleep. Mu Yang didn't smile. She handed over the name list and said, "I'm here to participate in the senior doctor assessment." The long-bearded examiner took the paper and frowned when he saw the seal on it. "Do you have the seal of an intermediate doctor?" "No." The examiner's face darkened. "What about the junior doctors?" "No." The examiner flew into a rage. "How dare you? What? Is there a rule in Xian Medical Pavilion that you can't directly apply to be a senior doctor?" Mu Yang raises her eyebrows. "Since that's the case, then according to the rules of the registration, repay me 10 times the registration gold coins." The examiner's face stiffened. The Xian Medical Pavilion accepts gold coins to host the doctor's assessment. The Xian Medical Pavilion's doctor's seal is also recognized in the Yanwu continent. But if Xian Medical Pavilion rejects the doctor's participation in the assessment after the data has been reviewed and approved, he would have to pay back 10 times the registration fee. One must know that the registration fee for the advanced physician examination was no small sum. "Alright, I'd like to see what kind of flower a little girl like you can produce." The advanced physician examination room, which had been quiet for many years, was brightly lit. The questions for the advanced physician examination had already been prepared beforehand. The person who came up with the question is the famous godly Dr. Qian of the Yanwu continent. Every examiner in Tianyuan City's Xian Medical Pavilion has looked at the questions inside, but no one could answer them completely. No, even those who could answer half of it were few and far between. The long-bearded examiner, who was still drowsy just a moment ago, is now staring at Muyan, who is sitting not too far away, with bright eyes. Humph, he wanted to see. How could an 18 or 19-year-old girl answer a question that even the examiners couldn't answer? However, after a quarter of an hour, Mu Yang's expression is natural. Her brush moves like it's flying. There isn't a shred of hesitation or nervousness on her face. The long-bearded examiner's heart began to pound. Could she really answer these questions? Or was he just pretending to be calm and writing casually? No. How could she possibly answer that? She must have randomly written it down. Although he thinks like that, he still couldn't help but approach step by step, wanting to see what Mu Yang has written. Just as the examiner's head is about to poke over. Chapter 245. Mu Yang puts down the pen in her hand, flings the paper that hasn't completely dried yet, and hands it over to the examiner. Her light pink lips opened and closed slightly as she said leisurely, "I'm done with the exam. The exam is over." The examiner's eyes widened as he received the examination paper in disbelief. The huge piece of paper was spread out. Below each question, there was an answer written neatly in beautiful handwriting. And these answers, everything that the examiner knew was actually all correct. As for those things he didn't know, after the explanation in the answers, he suddenly felt enlightened. The long-bearded examiner abruptly lifts his head, looking at Muyan like he's looking at a monster. These were all answered by yourself." Mu Yang leisurely smiled. "Of course, I'm here to take the senior doctor exam. If I can't even answer these questions, why would I come?" The long-bearded examiner sluggishly looks at the examination paper, then looks at Muyan. He paced back and forth several times before he finally snapped out of his daze. "You! Wait a moment. I'll inform the Elder Hall right now to conduct the official examination for the advanced physician." After saying that, he turned around to leave. But before he could take 2 steps, he ran back and bowed deeply to Mu Yang. "This one is Zhong Mingkuan, an intermediate doctor of Xian Medical Pavilion. I didn't know you were so capable before, so I hope you won't take offense." Zhong Mingkuan's report can be said to have shaken the entire Xian Medical Pavilion in Tianyuan City. The Elders' Council, which had been silent for a long time, gathered one after another. With a face full of shock, he reads Muyan's exam paper. "You're saying that someone answered all of Master's questions correctly?" A spy's voice came from the door. At the same time, a middle-aged man with a horse-like face, hawk-like eyes, no beard under his chin, and smooth skin, but his neck and the back of his exposed hands were covered with wrinkles, slowly walked in. Upon seeing this man, everyone in the room immediately stood up and bowed respectfully. "Greetings, Dr. Deng. Deng Hongfeng, Tianyuan City's Xian Medical Pavilion's sole senior doctor. He is also the disciple of Qian Qing, the founder of Xian Medical Pavilion. In Tianyuan City's Xian Medical Pavilion, it can be said that he has the final say." Deng Hongfeng's gaze turned and landed on Zhong Mingkuan. "How is it possible for someone to answer all the questions Master set? Don't tell me you're talking nonsense." "Absolutely," Zhong Mingkuan hurriedly said. "I watched that little girl take the exam with my own eyes. Every question was answered by her, and it only took her less than an hour." As soon as these words came out, Deng Hongfeng's face immediately became very ugly. Deng Hongfeng's position as a senior doctor wasn't obtained through an examination, but was directly given to him by his master. However, he was very confident in his medical skills. But when faced with the questions given by his master, he could only answer 70% of the questions, and it took him a whole 4 hours. How could a little girl do more right than him? And it took less time. With a calm face, Deng Hongfeng grabbed the paper and scanned it up and down several times. But he couldn't see any problems at all. There were even some answers that were even more direct and penetrating than what his master had told him back then. But Zhong Mingquan didn't know how to read the situation at all. He excitedly said, "Dr. Deng, our Tianyuan city hasn't had a senior doctor for many years. Now, he might really be able to create a miracle. A senior doctor who's not even 20 years old." Chapter 246. Mu Yang calmly waited for half an hour. Finally, someone came over and invited her into an empty room. As soon as she enters the room, Mu Yang feels a strong and uncomfortable gaze. When he turned around, he was met with a pair of greasy eagle eyes. Those eyes looked her up and down, and they were filled with greed, amazement, and lust. It was as if he wanted to strip her naked with his gaze. This kind of gaze was simply disgusting to the point of vomiting. Deng Hongfeng had originally planned to make things difficult for this genius doctor who was more outstanding than him. But the moment he sees Mu Yan's true appearance, he immediately stares blankly, his saliva flowing, and only amazement remains. He had never thought that the so-called genius young doctor would actually be such a beautiful and charming woman. Deng Hongfeng quickly walked forward and said, "You must be Miss Jun who is going to participate in the senior doctor assessment. First, let me take a look at your muscles and bones to see if you are qualified to be a good doctor." Saying that, those withered hands that are like chicken claws are about to grab Mu Yang's chest. There are also Zhong Mingquan and several other examiners from Xian Medical Pavilion in the room. Seeing this scene, all of their faces turned ugly. But they just avert their eyes. No one dares to step forward to help Mu Yan out of this predicament. Because in Tianyuan City, offending Deng Hongfeng is equivalent to offending the entire Xian Medical Pavilion. People like them would never be able to survive in the medical profession. Zhong Mingquan clenched his fists, his eyes spitting fire as he suddenly got up. However, the person beside him pulled him back. "Are you tired of living? Was he crazy? It's not the first time you know that Deng Hongfeng likes to defile women. Have you forgotten?" At that time, Dr. Liu's newly married wife caught his eye. Because she resisted, her hands were crippled, and she could no longer practice medicine. Which of his godson and godson didn't send their wives and daughters over for him to play with? Who dares to offend him in Tianyuan City? The anger in Zhong Mingquan's eyes slowly subsided under the persuasion of his companions. He gritted his teeth and looked to the other side. Zhong Mingquan's heart is filled with remorse for speaking rudely to Mu Yang just now, but later on, he had a deep understanding from Mu Yang's answers. Initially, he had been eager to push for the advanced physician examination in hopes of replenishing this young lady. Who would have thought that she would be pushed into the abyss of hell? How could Zhong Mingquan be at ease? One by one, the examiners of Xian Medical Pavilion turned their heads away, covering their ears and eyes. He pretended not to see or hear what was happening in front of him. They were well aware of Mu Yang's fate, but there was nothing they could do. On the other side, Mu Yang sees the perverted pig hand reaching for her chest and takes a step back. Smiling innocently, she said, "How come I don't remember there being a requirement to check one's muscles and bones in the advanced physician examination?" As soon as she spoke, her light and sweet voice lingered in his ears like the sounds of nature. This made Deng Hongfeng even more agitated, and his eyes seemed to be spitting fire. The girl in front of him seemed to be carved out of the most perfect snow jade. Her skin was like ice and her bones were like jade. But the more it was like this, the more he wanted to destroy and torture him. If he could create bruises of green, purple, red, and blue on that perfect white body, what a beautiful scene it would be. Haha, Miss doesn't know, but I have the final say in Xian Medical Pavilion. If I say I want to examine the muscles and bones, then naturally, I want to examine the muscles and bones. Chapter 247. However, before his palms could feel that ecstatic sensation, he suddenly feels a heart-wrenching pain in his elbows. Ah! A pig-like scream echoes in the empty room. It startles the other examiners in the room. Everyone turns their heads, and they are surprised to find that Deng Hongfeng's hands are softly hanging down. His elbows seem to have been forcibly broken by someone. The severe pain makes Deng Hongfeng's horse-like face twist together, making him look exceptionally sinister and funny. This What the hell is going on? Ah, help! Help! You bunch of idiots, what are you still staring at? Still not coming? Quickly treat me, ah. The Xian Medical Pavilion's examiners come back to their senses, and they promptly swarm over to check on Deng Hongfeng's injury. The injury doesn't look serious, it's just a dislocation. Each of the Xian Medical Pavilion's examiners has superb medical skills, so the dislocated elbow is quickly connected. However, the pain caused Deng Hongfeng to howl miserably. By the time the treatment is over, his head is already covered in cold sweat. He glares at Mu Yang, as if he's going to kill someone. Slut, what did you do to me? Mu Yang shows an innocent smile, and says unhurriedly, this doctor must be joking. I'm just standing here, I didn't even lift my hand, what can I do? Oh, that's right, we've already wasted a lot of time. Excuse me, can we start the senior doctor's official assessment? Deng Hongfeng glares at her fiercely, as if he wants to see some flaw in her. But no matter how he looks at it, the one before him is just a delicate and weak girl. How could an 18 or 19-year-old girl break his arm without even moving her hand? He's a peak profound stage ancient practitioner, but if it wasn't her, then who did it? After being stirred up like this, how could Deng Hongfeng still have those perverted thoughts? Right now, he just wants to kick this evil woman out. He absolutely can't let her become a senior doctor and step on his head. Alright, I'd like to see what qualifications you have to become my Xian Medical Pavilion's senior doctor. After saying that, Deng Hongfeng raises his hand to applaud, but he feels a sharp pain in his joints. He can only resentfully put it down, gnashing his teeth and saying, bring me all the patients. With that order, 10 men, women, and children are quickly brought in. They stand in a row in front of Mu Yan. Mu Yang couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. Just by looking at their complexions, one could tell that they were sick. The assessment of Xian Medical Pavilion's junior doctor is dialectical treatment. But he only needed to treat one patient. The intermediate physician examination was slightly more difficult, but it only required one to diagnose and treat 3 patients at the same time. To think that there would be 10 patients in the advanced physician examination, however, so what if there were 10 of them? Could it be that she couldn't cure it? Just as Mu Yang was about to go up to take his pulse, she heard Deng Hongfeng sneer. Even in the entire Yanwu continent's Xian Medical Pavilion, there are only 3 to 5 of them. If you want to pass the advanced doctor's examination, you need to show some ability. For these 10 patients, I want you to only look at them within 2 hours. You are not allowed to take their pulse, ask them, or get close to them. After that, you must determine their illness and give them an effective treatment plan. Mu Yan stares blankly, slightly frowning. She was only allowed to look, yet she had to make a dialectical treatment. Chapter 248. That's right. Shouldn't we at least let this girl take their pulse? Treating 10 patients in an hour, that's already too much. Even taking a pulse isn't allowed. How is that possible? The other examiners couldn't stand it anymore, and they all start talking at once. There's one more thing that they dare not say, even if they're angry. Can you, Deng Hongfeng, as a senior doctor, pass this kind of assessment? Not to mention just looking, even if he uses all of them, it's still impossible for him to diagnose and treat 10 patients in an hour. Bang! Deng Hongfeng heavily kicks over the low table in front of him. His cold and sinister gaze sweeps over everyone in the room, and he sneers, I said that this is the content of the senior doctor's assessment, so this is the content of the assessment. Do you have any objections? The examiners meet his gloomy gaze, and one by one, they immediately keep quiet out of fear, not daring to speak again. Deng Hongfeng darkly looks at Mu Yan. This is the official content of the senior doctor's assessment. If you can't pass, then you can get lost now. Mu Yan's long eyelashes droop, and after a while, she slowly raises her eyes. Her clear, pitch-black eyes are glistening, and she has a smile that isn't a smile. All right, I accept the assessment. Zhong Mingquan suddenly sighs at the side, and he shakes his head in dejection and guilt. Deng Hongfeng's eyes flash with a complacent light. He thinks to himself, after this girl fails the assessment, if she still wants to become a doctor, she'll have to curry favor with him. When that time comes, he can wantonly toy with this woman, Thinking of his passion, Deng Hongfeng's eyes are suffused with a bloodthirsty and cruel glint. At this time, Muyan has already walked unhurriedly to the first patient. This person is sick. A sweet-sounding voice, like clear dew rolling down bamboo leaves, it's chest paralysis, and the treatment is citrus aurantium, white cinnamon twig soup, supplemented by. As soon as these words come out, Deng Hongfeng's lascivious smile suddenly freezes on his face. All the examiners in the room look over in disbelief. That's right. Whether it's the illness or the treatment plan, there's not even the slightest deviation. There's no pulse, no questioning, not even close observation. How could it be diagnosed? The examiners in the room looked at each other, seeing the shock in each other's eyes. After Deng Hongfeng recovered from the shock, he sneered, "It's just a blind cat bumping into a dead mouse. I don't believe that she can identify all 10 patients." Mu Yang slowly walks to the front of the second patient. Her footsteps don't stop as she lightly says, "This person is not sick." As soon as he finished speaking, he dashed forward. He was shocked once more. Because the second person looked sallow and emaciated, but she was born with a small skeleton and yellow skin. In fact, she was not sick. Of course, it wouldn't be a problem if he relied on pulse diagnosis. But Mu Yang actually determined that this person was not sick just by looking at him from afar. This person is sick. There is no cure for it, but oyster prunella can be used to slow down the onset and relieve the pain. This person is sick. It was feng xie. The treatment method is. Just like that, Mu Yang walked past each patient as if she was taking a leisurely stroll in the courtyard. Every time she appeared in front of a person, she would tell them their illness and treatment method. Chapter 249. Deng Hongfeng, on the other hand, slowly turns from disdain to flustered and exasperated. He doesn't believe that a person can do it without taking a pulse. Just by looking at it from a distance, she can diagnose and treat it. If the girl before him really has this kind of ability, doesn't that mean that she's 10 times, 100 times more powerful than Master? How is that possible? Muyan slowly walks up to the 9th person, her pink lips slightly open. This person is sick. Hearing that, Deng Hongfeng's eyes brighten, and he suddenly jumps up from his chair. "Ha ha ha, you're wrong. The assessment is over. You've been eliminated. Hurry up and get out of Xian Medical Pavilion." Hearing Muyan say this person is sick, the examiners of Xian Medical Pavilion, except for Deng Hongfeng, all show an incomparably regretful expression. Just a little bit more. Really just a little bit more, and this girl would have succeeded. She would have become the first senior doctor in Tianyuan City. She would also have been the youngest senior doctor since the establishment of Xian Medical Pavilion. That would have been a miracle. Unfortunately, the second to last one, she answered incorrectly. Because this 9th person, several doctors have consulted together and determined that he doesn't have any illness. At this time, Deng Hongfeng only feels proud and elated, unspeakably carefree. He squints at Muyan, those hawk-like eyes full of malice. "What are you still standing there for? The assessment is over. You've been eliminated. You're not allowed to participate in Xian Medical Pavilion's assessment for the next 3 years. This is a rule of Xian Medical Pavilion. If you're eliminated in the junior doctor's assessment, you're not allowed to register for 1 year. If you're eliminated in the intermediate doctor's assessment, you're not allowed to register for 2 years. And if you're eliminated in the senior doctor's assessment, you're not allowed to register for 3 whole years. Therefore, under normal circumstances, very few people would participate in Xian Medical Pavilion's assessment if they don't have full confidence. Deng Hongfeng guesses that Muyan definitely wants to become a doctor in Xian Medical Pavilion, and in the end, she would have to beg him. He can't help but feel more and more proud. "Little girl, you're still tender. If you want to become a senior doctor like me, you'd better obediently wait a few more years. However, if you want to take the intermediate doctor's assessment, you can come to me in private. Maybe I can give you a way out and give you another chance." The corner of Mu Yang's lips curled up, revealing a lazy and evil smile on her beautiful face. "Give me another chance, I don't think it's necessary." "Stupid girl, I gave you face but you don't want it." Deng Hongfeng's complexion suddenly changes. "Alright, since you don't know what's good for you, then don't even think about participating in Xian Medical Pavilion's assessment in this lifetime. Wait. Zhong Mingquan finally couldn't help but say, Dr. Deng, isn't it too harsh to eliminate people like this? After all, she answered all the previous 8 patients correctly. The other examiners couldn't help but whisper among themselves. Yeah. I only watched from afar and didn't even feel his pulse. To be able to answer 80% correctly is already very impressive. I'm ashamed of my inferiority. I am also ashamed of my inferiority. Even if you don't have a high-level physician, you should at least give an intermediate physician's seal, right? Even the patients looked at Mu Yang with awe in their eyes. Especially those who had their illnesses pointed out, their hearts were filled with gratitude. Their words and expressions naturally brought out their gratitude. Deng Hongfeng listened to the whispers of the people in the room, and his face turned pale. Chapter 250. Deng Hongfeng points at Zhong Mingquan and the others, his eyes filled with ruthlessness. If I say she's eliminated, then she's eliminated. Do you have the right to speak in Xian Medical Pavilion? Saying that, he fiercely glares at Muyan, still not going to get out of here. Muyan completely ignores him. Instead, she takes 2 steps forward and stands in front of the 9th patient. The 9th patient is a middle-aged man with a simple and honest appearance. He has a head full of thick black hair, but it doesn't match his sparse yellow tiger beard and eyebrows. Seeing the beautiful girl coming over like a fairy from a painting, the middle-aged man awkwardly twists the corners of his clothes. His face is bewildered and nervous. Muyan smiles faintly, her expression indescribably gentle and gentle. Uncle, can I ask you a few questions? The gentle and sweet-sounding voice is like a feather, gently dispersing the humbleness and nervousness all over his body. The middle-aged man unconsciously relaxes his nerves, but he still stutters. Please ask away. You're wearing a wig, right? When the middle-aged man hears that, he suddenly widens his eyes. How did you know? After saying that, the middle-aged man's face flushes red, and the awkwardness on his face turns into panic and embarrassment. If there's a hole right now, he really wants to plunge into it. Muyan's expression becomes even gentler, completely without the slightest hint of ridicule. If I can cure your illness and guarantee that it won't relapse, would you be willing to take off your wig? Is what you said true? The middle-aged man lets out an almost shrill voice. Can you really cure my illness? Muyan slightly hooks up her lips, her smile languid and disdainful. What? Don't believe me? Believe. Of course I believe. The middle-aged man's eyes flash with a burning light. The 10 of them have clearly seen Muyan's ability just now. If someone else says that they can cure his hidden illness, the middle-aged man might not believe it. But if it's the girl before him who says it, he doesn't know why, but he firmly believes it without a doubt. The middle-aged man slowly nods, resolutely saying, I believe you. Saying that, he slowly raises his hand to touch his hair. On the other side, the examiner of Xian Medical Pavilion is confused. What is Jun Muyan and this patient number 9 talking about? Wig. What did this have to do with the assessment? Deng Hongfeng said angrily, Little bitch, what are you doing? Didn't you hear me tell you to get out? Don't think that you'll be able to pass just by stalling for time. He did not finish his sentence. Patient number 9 had already taken off the wig on his head. Then, only a few tufts of hair were left on the man's head. The rest of the scalp was shiny and barren. But the most frightening thing was that there were a few red pustules on his scalp. Taking off her wig and looking at her like this, she looked extremely horrifying. The entire examination hall fell silent. Deng Hongfeng's finger is still pointing at Mu Yang, but is frozen in place. She stared at the middle-aged man's scalp for a long time. The other examiners of Xian Medical Pavilion suddenly stand up, and one by one, they walk over to that middle-aged man. This is the ghost harvest thorn. Ghost thorn is a very rare disease. If it hadn't reached the stage of full-blown attack, he might not even be able to feel the pulse. And the ghost thorn on the middle-aged man's body had clearly just flared up. It was only the initial symptoms. Chapter 251. Everyone in the room has taken the pulse and seen the patient. Yet he actually has the disease of ghost thorn. Just as everyone is in shock, a young girl's unique, elegant, and ethereal voice suddenly rings out in the room. This person is sick. The disease is called ghost thorn. The person with this disease would have their hair burnt into 1,000 pieces, their skin would be red and shiny, and they would itch like insects. This disease is caused by the opening of the pores, and the evil wind would take advantage of it to attack the person, causing the wind to be strong and the blood to be dry. Examiners, may I ask if there is any problem with my diagnosis? The words are spoken neither fast nor slow, just like chatting while sipping tea, or talking about poems and essays. The lingering sound lingers in the room. It's like muffled thunder in the ears of all the examiners of the Xian Medical Pavilion. Deng Hongfeng is completely dumbfounded. His mouth is agape, and he stares stupidly at patient number 9. Then he looks at Mu Yang, as if he's seen a ghost. Zhong Mingquan suddenly comes back to his senses. He bows deeply towards Mu Yang. Mrs. Medical skills are superb, we are far inferior. That's right. These people had a group consultation, taking the pulse, asking about the medicine, and palpating, but in the end, they still couldn't find the disease. This young girl in front of them had only seen the patient from afar. This kind of medical skill, it's more than just superb. It's simply a godly skill, comparable to the founder of the Xian Medical Pavilion, godly Dr. Chen Qing. The only one present who doesn't admire Mu Yang, but is full of jealousy, resentment, and unwillingness, is probably only Deng Hongfeng. His face contorts as he glares at Mu Yang. You and this man, did you collude with each other? Yes, you must have colluded. The results of this assessment don't count. Mu Yang sneered. Oh? Is that so? It turns out that the integrity of the Xian Medical Pavilion is only worth this much. It seems that after I leave, it's necessary for me to advertise your pavilion. Wait a minute. Zhong Mingquan promptly calls out to her, Miss, stay. Mrs. Talent, we have all seen it with our own eyes. Being awarded the title of senior doctor, this miss is absolutely well-deserved. An old man at the side strokes his beard and says, that's right, this old man will go get the senior doctor's seal and badge, and inform everyone of the news that the first senior doctor has appeared in Tianyuan City. Miss, please wait a moment. Deng Hongfeng pointed at everyone in disbelief. What is the meaning of this? Could it be that you want to rebel? The white-bearded old man glanced at him coldly and said in a deep voice, Dr. Deng, what do you mean? Could it be that they want to disregard Xian Medical Pavilion's reputation? If Xian Medical Pavilion's reputation is really ruined by you, do you think that your master, godly Dr. Chen, would spare you? Hearing the name of miracle Dr. Chen, Deng Hongfeng's body visibly shrank. Mu Yang's eyes, on the other hand, flashed with a cold killing intent. Soon, someone brought the senior doctor's badge and seal, and the white-bearded old man personally handed them over to Mu Yang. Even though she has become the only senior doctor in Tianyuan City to pass the examination, the expression on Mu Yang's face is still languid and indifferent. With a faint smile on his face, he casually caught the 2 items and tossed them into the air. Then he hands the seal to the old man. Excuse me, I want to buy dragon bone grass and smelted marrow flour from Xian Medical Pavilion. Give me as many as you have. The old man was stunned and did not come back to his senses for a long time. Mu Yang said with a smile that was not a smile, what? Can't the senior doctors of Xian Medical Pavilion buy these 2 kinds of rare medicinal herbs? Chapter 252. Yeah. Mu Yang admitted it very straightforwardly, isn't it allowed? Or are the rules of Xian Medical Pavilion just written for fun? No, please wait a moment. The old man glanced at Zhong Mingquan. Take this lady's seal and take out all the dragon bone grass and smelted marrow flour from the warehouse. Wait. Who said you're allowed to sell rare medicinal herbs to him? Deng Hongfeng's exasperated voice suddenly cut in. His eyes burn with a raging flame of anger. Pointing at Mu Yan, he shouts, Slut, don't think of swindling our Xian Medical Pavilion's rare herbs. Now, I suspect that you have cheated in the advanced physician examination. The results of the examination are not counted. Don't think that just because you identified the ghost thorn, you think you're amazing. You slut, you must have colluded with someone to cheat. Was it you, Zhong Mingkuan? Were you seduced by this little slut? Was that why you spoke up for her time and time again? Don't you dare slander me. Zhong Mingkuan was so angry that his entire body was trembling, and his face had turned purple. Deng Hongfeng said proudly, "You're angry because I dismantled it." I felt that there was something strange about today's matter. It seems that all of this was originally planned by you two adulterers. You slut, you don't have any real skills at all. Mu Yang sighs softly, her beautiful face revealing a trace of helplessness. However, a cold glint flickered in his peach blossom eyes. I really didn't want to reveal the illness of the 9th patient in this room. But since Dr. Deng thinks that I don't have any real skills, then I think I should show my real skills. What? The 9th patient? Where is the 9th patient? Of the 10 people who were used as test samples, 3 of them were healthy and 7 of them were sick. Later, Mu Yang found out that patient number 9 had ghost thorn, so it was reasonable to say that there were only 8 patients. Where did the 9th come from? Mu Yan's beautiful eyes size up Deng Hongfeng from top to bottom. A lazy, arrogant, and demonic aura was faintly discernible on her body, making people yearn for it, but also fear it. This person is sick. The name of the disease was erectile dysfunction. The so-called impotence, also known as impotence, is a condition in which men are unable to have sex. Puff. Hearing Mu Yang's words, someone couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of tea. It was actually such a disease. There were also people who had a dull look on their faces. Then, they sneakily looked left and right, as if trying to find out who the person with this disease was. As for Deng Hongfeng, it was as if someone had poured a bucket of cold water over his head. His face turned from red to green, from green to purple, and from purple to white. At this moment, there was only one thought in his mind. How did she know? How could she know? Then, Mu Yang's last sentence shocked him to the point that he almost screamed and jumped up. Dr. Deng, do you need me to tell you who this impotent person is so that I can prove my real ability? As soon as he said that, everyone's eyes couldn't help but focus on Deng Hongfeng. Cold sweat dripped down Deng Hongfeng's forehead, but he braced himself and said, Don't talk nonsense and try to scare me, oh? Dr. Deng still doesn't believe me? Mu Yan once again laughed. Her laughter was like a purple wind chime blown by the wind. It was indescribably pleasing to the ear. Then I'll add a little more. Chapter 253. Moreover, in order to cure this illness, this person has taken all kinds of medicine and acupuncture treatment for many years, but not only has this unspeakable illness not been cured, instead, even the hair on his body has fallen off and stopped growing. Smooth and beardless, like a castrated eunuch in the palace. Deng Hongfeng's entire body was trembling. He could feel the eyes of everyone in the room focused on him. The ridicule, disdain, surprise, and disgust in her eyes made his scalp feel like it was about to explode. At this time, he truly regretted it. He regretted that he couldn't go back a few breaths of time. He would rather Mu Yang obtain the title of a senior doctor and rare herbs than let his hidden illness be exposed in front of others. The smile on Mu Yan's lips can't help but deepen, slowly shaking the senior doctor's badge in her hand. Dr. Deng, do you want to know who the 9th patient is? Or, I can give you more clues so that you can guess the identity of this person. Deng Hongfeng gritted his teeth and forcefully squeezed out 3 words from his mouth. No. Must. Yes. Then what do you mean? I'm a senior doctor of Xian Medical Pavilion. Yes. Mu Yan lifts her eyes to look at the old man. Since even Dr. Deng has recognized my status as a senior doctor, then may I ask, can I have the dragon bone grass and the smelted marrow flower? Not long after, Mu Yang left with enough dragon bone grass and smelted marrow flower in satisfaction. Deng Hongfeng glared in the direction she left. The hatred and killing intent in his eyes were like a surging tide, almost overflowing. Jun Mu Yan, just you wait. You dare to play with me like this, I will not only make you unable to mix in Tianyuan City and the medical world. I want you to die a horrible death. Outside Xian Medical Pavilion. Shun Jinglin anxiously limped back and forth, looking inside from time to time. In stark contrast to his panic and impatience was Feng Haitong's coldness and elegance, and Xiao Bao's indifference and calmness. Until he saw that Shun Jinglin's lame leg was getting more and more serious because of excessive walking. Only then did Xiao Bao speak in a gentle tone, "Uncle, stop spinning." The spinning made him dizzy. Shun Jinglin was educated by a 4-year-old child with a commanding tone, but he was not the slightest bit annoyed. Instead, he laughed dryly and stopped in his tracks. All right. Uncle will stop spinning. But why hasn't your mother come out yet? There shouldn't be any danger in the advanced physician examination. Before he could finish his words, he suddenly saw a figure walking out from the door. Shun Jinglin doesn't care about his leg injury, and suddenly rushes out. Yang, you finally came out. Why was he gone for so long? Is there any danger in the exam? Are you hurt? Muyan chuckles and supports her swaying brother. It's just an insignificant doctor exam. How could he get injured? With a flick of her wrist, a stalk of dragon bone grass and a stalk of smelted marrow flower appeared in her palm. Brother, look at this. Shun Jinglin's eyes suddenly widened, his breathing rapid. Even if he did not recognize these two medicinal herbs, he could still feel the powerful profound energy contained within these two medicinal herbs. This is... Yang, you said you can cure me, yeah. Muyan's eyebrows are curved, and there's a rare childishness in her. Since I've boasted that I will cure brother's leg, I naturally can't go back on my word. Shun Jinglin's eyes were red with excitement, and he was about to say something. He sees a small figure jump into Muyan's arms with a bang, and a short little hand tightly hugs her thigh. There's still no expression on that delicate and elegant little face, but there's a trace of grievance in those pair of ice-blue eyes. Chapter 254. Xiao Bao flattens his mouth in anger. In the past, whenever Nyangqin came out, the first thing she would see would definitely be Xiao Bao. But now, she's only concerned about his uncle. Muyan stoops to pick up Xiao Bao, and kisses him on the cheek twice. Baby, I've kept you waiting. Did you miss Nyangqin? Without waiting for Xiao Bao to speak, Muyan continues. Nyangqin missed Xiao Bao to death. Xiao Bao's little temper is immediately appeased by Muyan's words. His little face is bright red, and after a long while, he turns his head and nods imperceptibly. Yes, although they haven't seen each other for only a few hours, Xiao Bao actually misses his Nyangqin very much. Muyan and her group go back happily. Not long after they've gone out, someone is heading towards the Xian Medical Pavilion from not too far away. But he stops at the door, looking at their backs, or rather, at Shun Jinglin's back, revealing a suspicious expression. Zhao Chunming looks at Shun Jinglin with a gloomy face, and he can't help but look at the young girl by his side, so beautiful that she doesn't seem like a mortal. Shun Jinglin, that waste, when did he have such a beautiful girl by his side? How come he vaguely heard that girl calling Shun Jinglin brother? But he clearly remembers that Shun Xiuru doesn't look like this. As he's thinking, Zhao Chunming suddenly hears a sharp voice from his side. You know that slut Muyan? Zhao Chunming snaps back to himself. When he finds out who the person next to him is, he immediately shows a respectful expression. Godfather, why did you come out? The person in front of him has hawk-like eyes and a horse's face, smooth and beardless. It's actually Deng Hongfeng. Zhao Chunming has a flattering expression as he says, Godfather, I came to ask you, Jingya is already dressed up at home, waiting to entertain you. Would you like to go over tonight? Normally, as long as Deng Hongfeng hears him say this, he would immediately show an anxious expression. Zhao Chunming only needs to offer his wife, Fang Jingya, for one night. The next day, he would be able to get great benefits from this godfather's hands. After all, this godfather is the disciple of the godly Dr. Qian Qing, and is also the person with the highest authority in Tianyuan City's Xian Medical Pavilion. Just a little bit of something from his hands is enough for him to make a meteoric rise. As for Fang Jingya, after being tortured by Deng Hongfeng for a night, how miserable and haggard she is, it's too horrible to look at. Zhao Chunming didn't care about this at all. Since Fang Jingya is his woman, isn't it a matter of course for her to make sacrifices for his future? However, Deng Hongfeng was acting strangely today. Not only does he not reveal an anxious expression, he instead stares at Zhao Chunming with a sinister expression. I ask you, do you know Jun Muyan? Zhao Chunming shuddered under his gaze. He hurriedly tries to recall the name Jun Muyan. It did sound familiar, but he couldn't recall where he had heard it. Da. Godfather, I don't know what Jun Muyan? Deng Hongfeng's eyes turned even colder. Then why were you staring at her just now? Tell me, was it you who told my secret to that bitch? When he said this, Deng Hongfeng's eyes were filled with killing intent. Zhao Chunming was so scared that his whole body trembled. Cold sweat flowed down his back as he sat on the ground with a thud. Chapter 255. Hearing that, Deng Hongfeng's murderous intent finally recedes. A pair of eagle eyes slightly narrows, revealing a sinister light. You mean, if we use Fang Jingya as bait, we can definitely lure Shen Jinglin out? Yes. Zhao Chunming repeatedly nods. Godfather, rest assured, no matter which bastard or slut offended you, Chunming will definitely vent your anger for you. In fact, Muyan has already noticed Zhao Chunming and Deng Hongfeng's gazes. It's just that she simply doesn't pay attention to this kind of jumping clown. However, what makes Muyan's heart feel strange is, she always feels that there's a scorching and extremely invasive gaze watching her. Occasionally, it would also sweep over Xiao Bao in her arms. And when she was extremely close to Shen Jinglin, that scorching gaze of his would become as cold as the Arctic ice. It could simply freeze a person's bones. Muyan operates the internal force within her body, raising her perception to the extreme. She wants to find the source of this gaze, but she can't find anything. She can't help but knit her brows. Nyangqin. As if sensing her uneasiness, Xiao Bao softly opens his mouth, carrying a questioning tone. Muyan immediately relaxes. It's nothing, Nyangqin was just thinking about the pharmacy. She originally wanted to keep Junji drugstore open in Tianyuan City. But the approval to open a pharmacy or medical center in Tianyuan City is very troublesome, and it would actually take a year and a half. Miss at this time, Feng Haitang opens her mouth to say, in fact, in Tianyuan City, as long as you have the doctor's seal of Xian Medical Pavilion, you can directly open a medical center. Oh, is that so? Muyan raises her eyebrows in surprise. Opening a medical center is also not bad. Then let's go to the medical center that you and Haotian have chosen. She thinks. Fortunately, she just left Xian Medical Pavilion, so she didn't directly throw away that nuisance seal and badge. The location of the shop that Yang Haotian and Feng Haitang have chosen is indeed very good. This is a street of medical centers and pharmacies, and there are often people coming and going to diagnose and buy medicine. And behind the medical center is an entire courtyard. The area that the courtyard occupies is more than 5 times larger than the pharmacy in Xi'an. The dozen or so people from the ink camp have been placed inside, and they probably only occupy less than 1/10 of the space. Mu Yang directly lets people hang up the Junji Medical Center sign. Yu Yang and Old Dao were still the managers of the clinic. But they can't practice medicine, so Mu Yang asks Old Dao to find a way to recruit a few doctors. Mu Yang herself doesn't need to spend much money, but she needs a lot of money to raise and strengthen the ink camp. Therefore, the operation of medical centers and pharmacies was indispensable. However, 3 days passed. Old Dao kneels in front of Muyan with a guilty look on his face. Miss, Old Dao didn't do his job well. Can you punish Old Dao? What's wrong? Mu Yang raises her eyebrows. Can't find a doctor. This was basically impossible. Because Tianyuan City has Xian Medical Pavilion, the number of primary doctors here is the highest in the entire Kaiyang country. How could he not be able to recruit a mere physician who offered such a high price? Chapter 256. Muyan chuckles, so that's how it is. Deng Hongfeng actually used such a move on her. No wonder there wasn't a single customer in the store these past few days. How interesting. Miss, do you need me to report this to the Ghost City? Old Dao's eyes are cold. Dare to bully our Ghost City's Shinshudaran, you're simply tired of living. Across from him, Muyan's thin lips are slightly hooked up, her smile devilishly charming. No need, it's just a few insignificant maggots, there's no need for the Ghost City to take action. Old Dao, you just have to let the people from the ink camp do a few things for me. Old Dao quickly moves to Muyan's side, listening to her whisper. When he hears Muyan's method, old Dao is completely dumbfounded. This is also possible. But soon, he laughed again. Although it was very sarcastic, why did he find it so interesting? After old Dao leaves, Mu Yang simply returns to her room and directly enters the space. Muyan's current cultivation has already reached the mid-level of the pre-celestial realm. He was only one step away from the innate advanced level. During this period of time, she had a faint premonition that she was about to break through to innate level. But he was always one step away. A bottleneck lay in front of her. It was clearly within reach, but she couldn't break through it no matter what. Thick internal force slowly revolves in Muyan's Qi Sea, forming a whirlpool. The vortex grew from small to large. Slowly, it turned into a powerful aura that was 100 times purer than ordinary qi, and it filled the air. The Tianmo Qin by Mu Yang's side. As if it had sensed something, it began to sound even though there was no wind. It emitted a faintly discernible sound of the zither. Xiao Bao, who was originally immersed in the sea of books, suddenly raises his head. He looks in Mu Yang's direction, his big blue eyes flickering. The fat rabbit, who was originally sleeping soundly, also crawls up with a grunt. Its Mung Bin eyes blink as it looks at Muyan. A trace of shock and horror flashed through his small eyes, which were squeezed by his chubby face to the point that they could barely be seen. This is absorbing the spiritual power in the space. How could that be? A person who had never activated the 5 elements, an ancient martial artist who only knew about qi and didn't even know what spiritual power was. How could it absorb spiritual power on its own? Xiao Bao didn't think as much as the fat rabbit. He didn't know what spiritual power was, and he didn't know how sensational it was for a person who only knew how to cultivate qi to spontaneously absorb spiritual power. Xiao Bao only knew that his mother's aura made him feel very comfortable. It was so comfortable that he wanted to get closer to her, but there was also a trace of pure reverence. Xiao Bao's face is flushed red as he stares unblinkingly at his mother's most beautiful face in the world. He felt that his mother was really too amazing. He had to work harder in the future and become stronger. Otherwise, how could he be qualified to protect his mother? After a full 4 hours, Muyan opens her eyes, revealing a trace of frustration. In the past 4 hours, she felt as if the meridians in her body had been cleansed by something. It was indescribably comfortable. However, no matter how comfortable it was useless. She still hadn't broken through her bottleneck. Just as Muyan is about to get up, she bumps into a soft little body next to her. At some point in time, Xiao Bao had fallen asleep. His handsome little face was indescribably beautiful and tranquil, as if he was a fairy that had descended from the heavens, or as if he was carved out of the most beautiful white jade in the world. His warm, small body leaned against her, and all his movements were full of attachment. Chapter 257. In an instant, Muyan's heart seems to be soaked in honey water, soft and sweet. It's hot and moist, making her vision a little blurry. She gently picked up her most beloved baby and kissed him on his rosy cheeks. Only then did she leave the space with her baby. Muyan's whole body is focused on Xiao Bao, so she doesn't notice. The lazy rabbit that seems to be always sleeping soundly in the space is actually not asleep at this moment. Instead, it widens its Mung Bin eyes, looking at her like it's looking at a rare monster. Only when her figure disappeared did he let out a yawn, lay on the ground and fell asleep. Yang Yang, you haven't had dinner yet, right? Outside, Muyan finds that it's already dark outside. Shun Jinglin just pushes the door open and comes in, carrying a meal in his hands. Muyan promptly makes a shushing gesture, carefully placing the baby in her arms on the bed, then gets up and walks out of the inner room. I forgot the time when I was cultivating just now, and now I really feel hungry. Thank you, big brother. Muyan smiles and sits down at the table. Although there's fresh food in the space, Muyan has been cultivating for 4 hours, not eating anything. Now that she's been tempted by the aroma of the food that Shun Jinglin has brought, she's really hungry. While Muyan eats, Shun Jinglin watches with a gentle smile on his face. Only when she finishes eating, does he carry the bowl and chopsticks to leave. Brother, wait a minute. Muyan calls out to stop him, Don't be in a hurry to leave, take off your clothes and let me take a look. As soon as Muyan says this, Shen Jinglin's whole face immediately turns red. Even his voice stutters. Yang. Yang, even if you and I are brother and sister, but, in short, you're a girl, how can you casually let a man take off his clothes? And we're not related by blood. This is wrong, Fut. Muyan bursts out in laughter. Brother, what nonsense are you thinking about? I just want to see how your injury has healed, okay? Hearing that, Shen Jinglin immediately lets out a long sigh. However, his face was still as red as a cooked prawn. He awkwardly takes off his outer clothes, hesitating whether to take them off or not. He doesn't know why, but he suddenly feels a chill all over. It was as if there was some kind of cold and sharp blade that wanted to dismember his entire body into 10 or 8 pieces. This is fine. Fortunately, at this time, Muyan mercifully opens her mouth. Brother, come sit in front of me. Shen Jinglin quickly sits over. Muyan first checks his injured leg. On the second day after receiving the dragon bone grass and smelted marrow flower, Muyang operated on Shen Jinglin's legs. Because of the assistance of the draft, the surgical wound healed very quickly. In just 3 days, it had already formed a scab. And under the soothing effect of the Tianmo Qin's echo recovery, the destroyed Qi slowly recovers. Muyan carelessly pulls open Shen Jinglin's clothes. Through the thin skin that was covered in scars, he checked the condition of the meridians that connected to the Qi. His meridians were still shriveled, but they were no longer fragile. Just a little bit of profound energy flowing through them would damage them. The corner of Mu Yang's mouth hooks up into a shallow smile. All right, starting tomorrow, you can soak in the marrow and tendon washing fluid. Shen Jinglin's face was originally red, and he didn't even know where to put his hands. Chapter 258. Muyan shows a helpless smile. Brother, how many times have you asked this question? I guarantee that it will be cured, and I also guarantee that it will take at most 7 days. After 7 days, not only will your injured leg be healed, your cultivation will also be restored. Shen Jinglin walks away in a trance. Because he was too excited, he even forgot to put on his clothes and take them away. Muyan shakes her head, puts her brother's clothes aside, then turns around to wash up and go to sleep. Gently pulling the sleeping Xiao Bao into her arms, Muyan slowly sinks into a peaceful sleep. The room is indescribably quiet. There's a curl of incense in the air. It's a special blend of fresh fruit and floral fragrance, which has a sleeping effect when burned in the air. It can also make people happy and happy. In her sleep, the corners of Muyan's lips curl up into a faint smile. She didn't notice that at this time, there's a tall and handsome figure in the room. The moonlight outside the window shines through the thin screen, falling on the man's face. Even in such a dark night, one could still see how incomparably handsome the man's appearance was. He was like a god above the 9 heavens, aloof and peerless, causing people to wish they could crawl at his feet and sing their allegiance. In the dark night, the man's gaze falls on the sleeping woman on the bed. His thin lips are tightly pursed, the light in his eyes is cold and sharp, but there's a faint flame that seems to burn everything in front of him. This damn, heartless woman. She's actually still sleeping. She's actually in the same room with another man, pulling and pulling, undressing. Di Mingju takes a step forward, but his figure seems to have teleported, already arriving at the bedside. He looks down at the woman he hasn't seen for a long time. He really wants to strangle her. His straight back slightly bends, and his slender hands cover the girl's thin shoulders, wanting her to turn around and face him. However, Di Mingju's hands haven't moved yet. Xiao Bao in Muyan's arms seems to sense something, and he suddenly opens his eyes. However, before he can clearly see who's in front of him, Di Ming waves his hand. A strange energy is sent out, and Xiao Bao only feels dizzy, his eyelids heavy. Then he slowly closes his eyes and falls asleep. Di Mingju coldly snorts. He grabs the collar of the little cub that is clinging to Muyan's clothes and throws it to the end of the bed. In the next moment, the woman's soft and warm body was embraced by him. Just a moment ago, Di Mingju still wished that he could strangle Muyan to death and end all troubles once and for all. Especially in the past 3 days, he had been secretly watching this heartless woman. After leaving, he was not unhappy at all. Instead, he was intimate with other men, talking and laughing. What a happy life. At that time, Di Mingju's lungs were about to explode from anger. Even if this man is Mu Yang's blood brother, it's still not okay. What's more, he's not even blood related. However, when he hugged the person he yearned for day and night, seeing her peaceful and beautiful sleeping face, smelling her unique fragrance, Di Mingju's heart softens into a complete mess. Only at this moment did he realize how much he missed this little woman. At this moment, he was 100% sure Jun Muyan belonged to him. In this lifetime, he would never let this woman escape. The hand that is holding Muyan slowly tightens, as if itching to knead her into his bones. The person who was sleeping seemed to feel the suffocating pressure, and his eyelashes trembled. Chapter 259. Her pink lips slightly move, issuing a low murmur. Di Mingju, why did you come to my dream? Di Mingju's whole body suddenly stiffens. Muyan softly reaches out her hand, caressing Di Mingju's face. Because she's sleeping in her pajamas, they're loose. So her sleeves slide down as she lifts them up, revealing her snow-white jade-like arms. Even the lapels of her clothes, which aren't completely fastened, are slightly open because of this action, revealing the girl's exquisite, porcelain-like collarbone, and the beautiful lines that meander down. In a trance, he can see the faintly discernible scenery inside the lapels. Di Mingju only feels a bang in his head, all the blood in his body is boiling, rushing to a certain part of his body. However, Muyan's little hands aren't honest. Touching his face, her slender, smooth fingertips slowly slide over his brows, and finally stop on his lips. Strange, so real, just like the real thing. Why would I dream of you? The murmur is still languid and hoarse, like a feather tickling a person's heart. Muyan seems to want to wake up, but the incense lingering at the tip of her nose makes her feel drowsy. Because she doesn't feel any danger, she finally lets herself fall into a deep sleep. Her raised hands softly hang down, but she takes the opportunity to swipe across Di Mingju's thin lips. Like a seduction, her fingertips pry open his lips, moistening them with a finger. Di Mingju couldn't bear it anymore, lowering his head to fiercely capture the girl's lips. Like a starving beast attacking a city, he can't wait to devour her into his belly. After a long time, the room echoes with a man's heavy panting. Di Mingju abruptly releases her. With reddened eyes, he revolves the breath in his body, suppressing the surging desire that's on the verge of bursting out. He fiercely glares at the woman who's sleeping soundly after teasing him. Di Mingju gnashes his teeth. He swears, if this woman is awake at this moment, and there's no one else in the room, he'll definitely press her under his body, and eat her up, not leaving any bones behind. He'll let this heartless woman know what's the end of running away after teasing him. He takes a deep breath. Jun Shongdaren's reason finally suppresses his desire. He bends over to put Muyan back on the bed, and even tidies up her clothes. During this period of time, when he touched the young girl's silky smooth skin and saw the faintly discernible scenery under the lapel of her clothes, what kind of torment and struggle was not worth mentioning to others? Mother! A low voice suddenly came from the end of the bed. Di Mingju stares blankly. He turns his head to look, and sees the little guy that he just threw into the corner. As if he had lost his mother's embrace, his little face revealed a flustered and lonely expression. He was like a lonely cub that had barged into the forest and could not find its parents. Yu walked alone in the desolate forest at night. No matter how strong he was, he would still be sad and lonely. Di Mingju frowns. He could ignore this little bastard. But for some reason, when he saw Xiaobao's expression, he felt a chill down his spine. However, he felt an indescribable sluggishness in his heart, as if a huge rock was pressing down on him. In the end, Jun Shongdaren obeys his heart. He reaches out with his long hand and scoops up the little person at the end of the bed, holding her in his arms. He had never come into contact with children before. Naturally, he doesn't know how to hold a child. That's why the way he's holding the child is really indescribably twisted, making people uncomfortable. But he doesn't know why. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.